Do I think the Saviors would be more of a threat if they were led by the governor instead of Negan? No, I freaking love this comment. If you haven't seen The Walking Dead, don't watch this video. There's a moth in my room. Go away. We're here to talk about Beyond the Wall. Season 7 has now been complete. If you haven't seen all the reactions to Season 7, watch those before this video. Actually, that reminds me, there is something else we need to start with. I have received something from someone which I promised I would react to. So it's a deleted scene. It's not been scanned for viruses. I trust my viewers.
It's weird not having her here.
Wait, who are we referring to right now again?
You leaving for the heaps?
Soon.
Oh, Judith. Yeah.
You know what to do if they show up.
Give them what they want. One last time.
Oh.
I love you, Carl.
Why do you do that?
Why did they take this scene out? You know how much more, like...
Would you have done it? Cut off my arm?
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know if I like that specific part.
Would you do it now? Because it could happen again.
Okay, no, that's a lot cooler than I thought.
So let's go get our army.
I don't know how to feel about that scene, only because that almost feels like they're preparing to lose, right? It sounds like they've got a plan to fight back, which we kind of did, but they're preparing for the worst, and then Michonne's sort of saying, no, let's, whatever we do this 100%. I kind of like the way they did it, though, because when they took out, if they took out the whole I love you, Carl, and they take that whole thing out, and then taking out the thing, would you do it, like, I feel like the way that we experienced what happened was so much more in your face. If you were to watch that prior to that scene, you're probably going to expect something to happen. I feel like the beauty of the way they did it is it didn't really feel like that. It kind of felt like we were finally biting back. And only up until that last minute did I kind of think, oh, for God's sakes, not again. Negan's got, you know, control. I don't know, like, I like the way they did it, but I understand how, like, this scene's quite cool. I do, however, like Carl sort of saying to Rick, could you do it? Like, that is such a brave thing to say, eh? Like, damn. It only reinforces, I know, obviously, like I said, I'm not taking this scene into, like, any sort of experience of me going forward. That's why I'm probably not going to make a habit of watching these until I finish the show. I find that with deleted scenes, there's a reason they deleted them, right? Theoretically, they're not canon, if that makes sense. They're not a part of the timeline. They were taken out. I don't like watching scenes because I might in a few seasons go, oh, remember that conversation when, and go, oh wait, hold on, was that an actual scene? I think you can argue for why anyway. Like, I think you've asked a question, how do I feel about the POV of our Grimes family after that conversation in that scene? I don't know, like, I don't want to say it wasn't a great scene, but if I'm honest, it didn't sound right. I'm trying to figure out when this scene is set. Is this before Rick goes to the Scavengers?
You leaving for the heaps?
Leaving for the heaps. Must be the trash place.
You know what to do if they show up.
Give them what they want. One last time.
I also don't know how I feel about the whole, like, give them what they want one last time. I don't know. I like the way they did it because it really did feel like we were betrayed again, and then it's like we were fed up. You know, it was like, not again. Like, and you would have seen in my reaction, I literally wasn't gonna stand for it. I just said no. And then when Rick sort of gets in his face and goes, I've told you, you can do what you want, but I'm gonna kill you. It felt so like, you know, like a threshold was passed. This is my favorite part though. Like, I love you, Carl.
I love you, Carl.
Because it would have felt like if that had happened before. But then again, it's one of those things, it's like, is that then almost like too obvious? Are you gonna, if I watch that scene in the live moment, am I gonna go, oh, for God's sakes? Nah, that's like, that's foreshadowing. Kind of like the idea that they took foreshadowing out of the equation, you know what I mean?
Would you have done it?
This is a cool scene. I would have liked to have seen this scene. If we had seen this scene way before, that like, would you have done it? You may need to do it again. It just, for me, it shows how freaking brave Carl is. From what I've been told, Carl is quite an underappreciated character in the Walking Dead universe in terms of the fan base. Like, often, like, people overlook how impressive his journey is. Just a line like that in itself for me is like, oh, like, holy shoot. the bravery, you know, like he knows what needs to be done, but he wants to make sure that his father is going to be able to do it if it comes to it, you know. So I like all that. And then, if I'm honest, I don't like...
Something like...
Stop.
If I'm honest, I don't like this whole conversation, the Michonne stuff here.
No.
Like, it makes sense, like, you know, she's basically saying to them, yeah, no, stop thinking so pessimistically. We do this with the mindset of winning and beating them. You know, this is our time now. I think this scene would have been so much more powerful if it was just Carl and Rick and that conversation. When that scene happens, when Negan's in front of Rick, that scene would have felt like a lot more like kind of scary, because I wasn't even thinking in my mind, could Rick do that again if he was given the chance to? That didn't even cross my mind. Like, I genuinely felt like Rick would have done it in the moment. I don't know why, I just feel like Negan scared him shitless. There's a reason Negan stopped, right? There's a reason Negan got Rick to stop, because I think Negan believed Rick would do it, but that's what he wanted. Negan wanted to get Rick to the point of complete and utter fear and compliance, to the point where he would do something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very intelligent why he did that. But no, like, that scene's cool. It's a cool scene, but I understand why they got rid of it. There's a lot in it that I wish we did get to see, but at the end of the day, I like the way that it happened. Now, let's go through some of these comments. The first one I want to go through is actually in relation to the Scavengers and their betrayal, and that being a topic in this Beyond the Wall. The only thing I will say is I can understand why they would comply with Negan. Like, I think the scene alone, when Negan and what's her name, when they're standing next to each other and she tries to bargain with Negan, and then to which Negan just gives her a look of like, sort of stares into her soul, to which she backs down, like she knows not to bargain with him, like, and comparing that to the Rick scene, that was really powerful. I was like, damn. Yeah, so I can understand why they would go with the Saviors and team up with them instead of Rick. Like, one, yes, they can offer more, and if you're thinking it's about their survival, they're gonna pick the offer with the best outcome, you know? Like, in a way, like, they didn't owe us anything as a group. Yes, we upheld our end of the bargain, and yes, it's their loyalty on the line, or loyalty to an agreement on the line, but is that really that big a thing in the apocalypse? So when I was thinking about it after the fact, I was like, damn, I can understand why. Like, I don't hate the Scavengers now. It sucks, and I should have seen it coming. I mean, I think I did say, imagine Negan shows up and I swear I may have even said offers them a better deal. I can't remember, and if I didn't, maybe it's in the full versions or whatevs, I don't know. But I remember feeling skeptical about their loyalty. I remember feeling like to myself, well, are they gonna fight for us, or are they gonna like get all the guns and then just be like, yeah, nah. But we were desperate. What choice did we have? So I don't hate them. Like, it is a really big topic, so it's really hard to get my point across cohesively right now, and I apologize. I don't hate the Scavengers. I understand why they would side with Negan. Do I think it's permanent? No. Do I think that they've almost roped themselves into an agreement that they're going to regret? Yes. You know what? I think they have realized what Negan's about just from the finale. Of course I was going to be butthurt about being betrayed by them, but they're not exactly our friends. I mean, the first thing they did was throw Rick into a pit. It's one of those things that I can't be massively mad about, and I should have been wise enough to consider that a possibility. Will there be unlikely alliances made in the future? I believe so. If you guys want to know more about my thoughts on that, you can ask me questions, because that's a very bloody broad topic. Ultimately, let's end it on this note. Currently, they're fighting for the Saviors. Our fight is with them too. Do I think Negan would have actually have killed Carl? Really hard one to answer as well, eh? Because if he didn't kill Carl, he would lose... I feel like he would lose that shock factor. The funny thing is, right, is there is a lot of reasons why this is where the war was going to start. I always knew Negan could only go to a certain point before losing Rick completely, and I'm talking about his sanity, you know, like turning him into an animal. Like, I think to an extent he's turned everyone into animals at this point, but like really animal-like, you know. That's why he didn't make Rick do what he did in the first place, and he's been very selective as to who he kills, and he hasn't killed Rick, he hasn't killed Carl. Like I said, I think it's all manipulation and game tactics. Unfortunately for Carl, and the whole situation is, in the moment when Rick said what he did to Negan, I genuinely feel like Negan lost the faith that Rick would do as he says, that he could control this group. And the last resort for him was going to be to go for Carl again. And maybe the best case scenario for Negan would be that Rick would react and comply again. Genuinely, I think that that was the last resort, and he was that close to using the last resort. And even if he did use the last resort, he would have lost Rick anyway. So at that point, your only option is to then kill Rick as well. Do you see where I'm coming from? So I feel like the war had started the moment Rick had put his feet in the ground and said no. Like I said, this is the start of the war. So yes, genuinely, if this whole conversation had progressed, I think he would have killed Carl. And if not killed Carl, he would have taken Carl, right? I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't take Carl in the first place, because I genuinely feel like taking Carl would have been the smartest play. So I was kind of shocked he didn't do that. So maybe he wouldn't have. A lot of people keep asking me, like, actually, you know what? This can lead into another question. Do I think that after everything has happened, Negan still has a human side? Yeah, like at the end of the day, he's still a human being, right? And he'll still have things that he connects to in his past. And that's why in one of the more recent reactions I spoke about Negan's like 2 states in time. In the past, he was probably a genuine guy, right? Something's happened, there's some kind of snap. But whoever that was, it almost feels like parts of that person are leaking into Negan now. Like you can see little glimmers of like, well, that's quite human, or that's quite, you know, there's a scene when he was talking to Carl and trying to make Carl feel better about his eye. There was a moment in that scene when I was a little bit like, oh, you know what? Like, it almost feels like I'm happy the way he's speaking to him. Like it wasn't coming from a bad place. But then there's so much else that's bad. So I think he's still got a human side 100%. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not sure he'd kill Carl. Of course I think he's got a human side, and ultimately he is running a group of people. As much as I think a lot of his motive isn't great, you have to admit that the reason he started this kind of group has to have some kind of good motive somewhere or another. I'm not saying it still exists, but you know, it had to start from something. Do I think he's long gone? Yes. I do not think that there's hope. Yeah, anyway, I hope I've answered that. Negan's a really tough character. We don't know anything about him. With the governor, I struggled a lot to accept that he was all bad, and I at times imagined redemption arcs, and at times had thought, you know what, if he had just left, we wouldn't need to do anything, and I had almost like a weird faith in him at times that he was still there. But that's because we knew of his backstory so bloody quickly. With Negan, it feels like I don't know anything. It almost feels risky, me going, oh, what if? I don't want to get down that rabbit hole again of going, what if, what if, what if? Yeah, he's a really, really tough character. So these questions are bloody good, and I hope I've added some substance to my thought on them. And then this brings me to the last one, which I actually think is quite a fun one. Do I think the Saviors would be more of a threat if they were led by the governor instead of Negan? No, I freaking love this comment. Obviously, these are all hypotheticals, and the governor now might be a very different person and under different circumstances and blah, 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 blah. All I will say, I don't think the governor would be able to run this place. And the reason I say that is because, well, if he did run it, it wouldn't be the way it is. The governor never came across to me as someone who wanted to be kneeled to. He never came across to me as someone who wanted to impose fear. Like, he had a facade and a character that he played in different situations, and he created a community. There is no denying that Woodbury was a family and a community. We had characters live there temporarily, for goodness sakes. Like, it was a place that was designed to continue the ways of pre-apocalypse and live as human beings with families, do things we love. We played golf, you know what I mean? Woodbury was a community, and for all the governor's flaws and everything I hated about him and all the self-centered side to him, there was a part of him that I think genuinely wanted to run this place. And I can't, like, I'm sorry, but I can't deny that. He was messed up, yes, but you have to think about why he did what he did and what it created. So when I think about the governor running a place like this, I don't even think he'd be a leader here. Like, are we talking if Negan doesn't exist? Because if Negan doesn't exist, I feel like someone like Simon steps in. I don't think this would be run the way it would, and I don't think things would be happening the way they would be anyway if the governor was running this place. Like, his motives were very, very different. I just can't imagine it. Like, a lot of the anger and the way he acted was out of, like, was quite vengeful and overprotective. And not just that, if we think about this, right, the way that the governor ran things, he manipulated his people and used false information and misinformation to drive an uprising or to drive a war or to get the people to believe that they were fighting something beyond the walls that was a threat, but they didn't understand beyond the walls, you know? Negan just, like, there's no misinformation here. Do you see where I'm coming from? And the minute that the governor was found out for the misinformation, let's use Tara as a perfect example. What did she do? She jumped ship. The only reason the governor created as big of a dent as he did was because he went gung-ho and created shockwaves. You know, that's all he did. Do I think that the Saviors would be more of a threat led by the governor? No. Anyway, I hope I've gone through this, guys, enough. I love that last question. It's freaking amazing. I don't think the governor was very good at running a group in the apocalypse. He was good at creating a community that was bubble wrapped. But anyway, look, that is all from me, guys, in terms of Beyond the What. I hope you have enjoyed my almost podcast length episode. If you enjoyed as ever, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you all so much for your comments. Please leave a like. That's all from me, guys. As ever, this is me, Dan, and I'll catch you in the next one.